we have competing meetings on certain nights in the city commission room, and so sustainability just wrapped up, and obviously just getting started here, so bear with me just a second as I get everything coordinated here. Okay. So we are on YouTube. And just as a reminder, my name is Porter Arneal, Director of Communications and Creative Resources. A reminder to all of you to state your name each time you speak. And the meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and channel 25, public access channel 25. And just a reminder too to mute yourselves when you're not speaking, just so it makes it easier for everybody else to hear. And I think that's all I have to get started with, so I'll turn the meeting back over to Jerry.
All right, well, let's call the meeting to order at, I've got 7:05. Just another reminder, I guess, is as we vote on certain things like the upcoming approval of the minutes, and I'll do roll call in just a second here. But remind everybody to state your name, and maybe we should do the hand raise too, Porter, just so that we're sure how folks are.
If you do, you can do that, but it does need to be verbal as well for anybody that might be listening in. So a combination of both will work well. All
right, let's do both. I'll do the roll call, and we'll go in alphabetical order this time. James Alexander.
Yep, right here.
Marlo.
Here.
Sarah.
Here.
Kate. Mary.
Here.
Joshua. Jordan.
Here.
Clint.
Present.
Denise. And Christina.
Here. Did I hear that Mary is here? I don't see her on my screen.
Oh, I don't see Mary either.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Chair, this is Porter Arneal. Just Mary actually contacted me. I forgot to convey this. And she's in rehearsals for their opening program, I believe, next week. So she wasn't able to make it tonight.
Thanks, Porter. See, I was reading off of my list in alphabetical order instead of looking at the screen. All right. Okay, so we have roll call. So the next order of business is the minutes from last meeting, last month. Everyone had a chance, I assume, to look over those, and do we have any comments or recommendations for changes or anything else? All right, seeing or hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I move, this is Kate Deneen, I move we approve the minutes.
We have a second?
This is Clint, I second.
All right, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
That would appear to be unanimous approval. All right, so looking at our agenda, the next thing is the update on Culture Chat. I know there was some activity between our last meeting and now on that. I know there was a group stood up to discuss that, so maybe I would ask Marlo to give us an update on how that went.
Sure. Yeah, we all met to talk about the format of the culture chat and pick a date and time. Settled on Tuesday at 6 o'clock, thinking that would be a more accessible time to get people to show up past work hours. And we invited Margaret and Mary and Steve to come on. Porter agreed to moderate for us. And then we explored the idea of each of us personally inviting 3 people so we can make sure that we have a good turnout and we have an audience there that represents a diversity of ages and cultural groups and different places in the arts. So not just art organizations, but also artists and different people who encompass various aspects of art and culture.
Great. So to repeat, that's October the 27th?
Yes, at 6 p.m.
At 6 p.m. And
Porter created a Facebook event for it. So I think he's emailed that out and they invited about 20 people to it. So in addition to just inviting people on Facebook, if we could each make some personal emails or phone calls, or just if you're on Zoom with somebody you think would be great to pull in, if you extend a personal invitation for them to attend, that would be lovely.
wonderful. Anyone else want to add to that?
Porter, could you put up the information for anybody who's watching right now, who's not us?
I have to log in to Facebook. I don't have the information right in front of me. Actually, wait a minute. Let me do this. Hang on. I got another idea.
While he's doing that, one thing I would mention as well is that we were hoping that this conversation would be collaborative and springboard. I think we had that great presentation from Mary and Margaret and Steve kind of identifying the obstacles that arts and culture is facing right now in the pandemic. And so the idea to get heads together to find some positive ways that people can help one another to find creative ways to have the arts and cultures exist beyond this pandemic, and fundraising or funding ideas and collaborative programming ideas as well.
And actually, while I'm doing this, does anyone want to speak to what happened, the conversation at the round table as well, and how these things are sort of jibing?
I came in at the end of roundtable. Kate, do you want to? I kind of jumped in like mid Final Friday conversation, so I don't know what I missed.
Oh, okay. So the roundtable, we spent a lot of time talking about Final Friday and how we can make it, not we make it, but as a community, we can create an event again that gets artists of all kinds, all stripes, excited, and gets the community, local community, regional community, interested in coming back around and doing it in a COVID safe way. So we're forming a committee, and we're going to work on coming up with some ideas that can be shared in a very general sense, organic sense. We don't want to, this little committee doesn't want to, have a leader that tells everybody what to do, but what we're trying to figure out is a way that we can share best practices, good information about how to reach out and collaborate, thinking outside the box, stuff like that. We're still working on it, so I know this doesn't sound very clear, but we're hoping to get something going relatively quick so that we can share that stuff out, and folks can maybe, even without trying to be safe for COVID, coming up with some new ways to approach Final Friday.
Kate, this is Christina. Is this committee made up of members from the Lawrence Arts Roundtable exclusively, or how's that working?
At the moment, it is the roundtable, and actually it was the people who were on the call today, just because we were there and we had the beginning of the discussion. The first meeting will be, excuse me, My neighbors are getting loud. The first meeting will be that small group, and one of the things I tossed out to everybody was think of 2 other people out there that you want to, and we'll discuss it at the meeting so we aren't picking all the same 2 people, that you'd like to invite to be part of this discussion, and really focusing on folks who aren't already part of these groups, who don't always show up for the roundtable or have been to Culture Chat, you know, kind of reaching out and in a way cherry picking some folks and some getting them more involved, like the Black Artists Group, some of the people who are involved with the East Ninth project, things like that. So just trying to reach out and get more. But for the first meeting, we're going to try and come up with a framework, because I don't want this just to be another meeting. And I'd really like us to come up with some. I'm chair. They made me chair, so that's their own problem. I'm kind of running this, so I want to have something come up, that we have a plan, that we have action, and it's not just people getting together and saying this and saying that and saying this and saying that. So that's kind of the focus. So the first meeting, just a smaller group. Second meeting, we're going to be reaching out and inviting people to come in.
I think we took a lot of positivity from the East Ninth event that was just on October 3rd. It was very COVID safe. We had outdoor events where everyone was in masks and limited capacities and going to art, and it was very successful and positive for the community. So I think that was a great springboard to know that we can do this safely, and keeping the arts going and keeping emotional connections between people and visibly seeing your neighbors in a safe way.
Yeah, at least one of the people in the group was almost in tears about having been part of that night and being able to be around other people in a safe way, but still having that community thing go on. So another part of this is that everybody who was on that call wanted to be in this little, not so little, committee. So it's something that everybody seems to be pretty excited about and interested in pursuing.
So, Mr. Chair, this is Porter Arneal again. I have gotten the Facebook event up on screen, and I believe Kurt can share that. So that is available. It is a Facebook event, so people can sign up there. Just so everybody understands, it will be a Zoom event, so it does require registration, which just means that people have to click on the link, put in their name and I think email address, and that way they'll get a link to the meeting. That way we'll just have a sense of how many people will be there and that type of thing. So that is good to go.
And Porter, what is it that we're looking at? This is the LCAC Facebook?
This is the City's Arts and Culture Facebook page, exactly.
Okay.
And the link is in that email that I sent to you all. And so if you forward that, people will have the link both to the Facebook event and to the Zoom link for registration. So all the information is in there for anybody that wants to join in on this culture chat. And as Marlo said, we'll have Steve Nowak and Margaret Morris and Mary Doveton talking about their experiences recently. And of course, we're not, limiting it to that. We know everybody's struggling to some degree. So it's really opening up those conversations about, how you doing, and let's share ideas about how we can get through this together.
Great. And we'll have you as our moderator. Thanks for doing that.
I will moderate. I'm happy to do that.
Great. Thank you. All right. Anything else on the culture chat? Are we really going to review the 2021 budget and programs tonight, Porter?
I think we should.
Okay.
So let me stop screen share on this one. And I have a very brief presentation. I think this will be good, and I also think it'll be helpful for our new members to see what we anticipate and some of the realities that we face in this. So let me just get this set up.
The city coffers are brimming with funds during COVID, right?
Not quite.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, I just put together the budget and the related programs for you guys to just, as a refresher, basically. My intent in this is just, we need to start thinking about next year. Obviously, both from the perspective of what's been budgeted, what programs exist, and how you all may want to think about making adjustments as we go through. The biggest thing in my mind is, well, let me go through the presentation and I can talk more. So for 2021, the budget is the same as it was this year. The Outdoor Downtown Sculpture Exhibition, or ODSE, has $20,000 in its budget. The Community Arts Grants, or CAG, has $25,000 budgeted. The Phoenix Award is at $3,000, and as you'll remember, last year we were going to select an artist for the following year's Phoenix Awards, and obviously we did not do that. So this would be an artist selection year if we go traditionally. And then we have miscellaneous for $1,000. We use that typically for printing and other things related to the programs and that type of thing. In addition, we do have 3 public art projects in various stages of completion. The Senior Resource, for Fire Station 1 Senior Resource Center, Jacob Bermud is actually finishing up the piece for that. Because of COVID, I have just not gotten together with the Municipal Services and Operations Office yet and Parks and Recreation to see about moving the sculpture that's there now that was placed there from years ago. So I have to get that done. But Jacob is being very patient, and I really appreciate that. He's busy with other things too. So we're working on that. The police headquarters, as you know, the artist has been selected, Joe O'Connell of Creative Machines. And I'm just getting the contract finalized with him to send that to him for his review so we can begin moving forward on that. And then the transit facility is still very much in process, the facility itself, so we haven't started that project yet. And these are all CIP funds, so these are secure and were established actually several years ago at this point. Whoops, hang on, I've got somebody else coming in. So that's where we stand now.
Just to remind for some of the our new members, those are, correct me if I'm wrong, but those are funded through Percent for Art, right?
Those are a result of the Percent for Art program, and they're put into the capital improvement program, so that they're part of the annual capital improvement. So
would you mind describing just briefly Percent for Art? For our new folks.
Yes, again, Porter Arneal, and basically Lawrence has a Percent for Art resolution, which allows the city commission to set aside up to 2% of funds on various projects that qualify, and we have a list of qualifications for these projects that can be set aside specifically for public art projects. The resolution is not an ordinance, so it's not required. It really is up to the city commission if they do that, but obviously you can see the allocated funds for these projects.
Thanks.
And I'll talk more about that at the orientation, which happily I got set up for, I think, can anybody remind me, October 27th, I think?
It's October 22nd on that Thursday.
Oh, thank you. So we have that set up so I can get them through the orientation as well. Any other questions at this point? Okay. So as you all know, the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission budget is tied to the Transient Guest Tax Fund. You can see here the history of that from 2015 up through the anticipated 2021. As you know from our last meeting, the TGT fund is down significantly because of the pandemic. Hotel and lodging stays are down. And so it's somewhere in the vicinity of about a 52% reduction at this point. And you all are not the only entities reliant on that fund. Others are as well. So as you know, it basically eliminated programs this year. The budget is in place, as you know, but we will have to anticipate a probable reduction And possibly the commission could say that we're not going to fund certain things. So I just want you to be fully aware of the circumstances as we go into this. We will hopefully know a little bit more about projections with a report coming in I think the next week or so about the next quarter of the TGT funding. So we'll have more information. So the finance department is tracking this, but that is the reality of the situation. These are all the funded programs through the tourism fund budget, so you can see the list there. Arts Commission is at $49,000. We also have $25,000 for the cultural marketing plan. That's set aside if we want to promote the cultural plan, excuse me, or anything along those lines. So that's available to us depending on what we want to do with that as far as advancing the cultural plan. At this point, the cultural plan is 5 years old. So there might be a consideration that it might be time to revisit that at some point. I don't know if during a pandemic is necessarily the best time, but food for thought. And so that's it for the presentation. As I said, or started to say, my sense would be is that it might be a good idea, and I don't expect you all to do anything formally tonight. I really just wanted to get this in front of you. As you think about the upcoming year, obviously there's still so many unknowns with our pandemic situation. But just to consider, how would you want to implement these programs? Would you want to alter these programs under the current circumstances? The fact that budget will likely be reduced by as much as 50% if it isn't eliminated. Would you want to prioritize these in some way? Those are the general questions I just want to throw out and let you guys have some conversation and start thinking about as we move into 2021 and go forward.
Thank you, Porter. This is Joshua Foley. I was just noticing that the budget for the Cultural Arts Commission and all the public arts and recognition that goes into that funding is less than what it costs to put up lights on a well-lit street downtown. That seems strange and ironic to me, but I just wanted to point that out and, note that our holiday lights are as or more prioritized than the public art work that is that is what the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission does throughout the year.
I have to admit, I noticed that those two line items myself, Joshua. So this is Chair Johnson. I was going to comment on the Phoenix Awards. So just for historical background, we used to give the Phoenix Awards every year. A local artist creates the award, and then folks nominate people to receive that award, and we used to do that annually and have an annual ceremony to do those awards. Last time, I was going to say last time we gave those, we in order to try to better that program, and it really, there were a couple of reasons why we went to every other year, and one was to sort of pool the budget for 2 years so that we could offer the artist who created the award a bigger budget to create the piece, and then also to the idea was that maybe the award would have a little bit more impact if it wasn't every year. Last year, and so what we did was we said we would take the $3,000 from the let's call it the first year of the every other year, and that would go towards the award, and then the second year's budget would go towards the ceremony itself. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Porter, but last year was supposed to be the first year in the cycle where we chose an artist to create the physical award. And obviously, I say last year, that would be this year, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, and we didn't do that obviously because of the budget reasons. And so we're out of kilter with our every other year because of that. So for 2021, if we say, for example, our budget doesn't get cut, but we'd still be in the first year for the Phoenix Awards, right? We would be looking to choose an artist, and that $3,000 would go for the creation of the award itself. And then 2022 would be the year where we held the ceremony and issued the awards. Is that correct?
This is Porter Arneal. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's one decision that we would need to look at with respect to these things is, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that maybe since we've skipped a year already, maybe we go back to the old, or one consideration would be, and I'm not, pushing for it one way or the other, but we're looking at 2 years with no Phoenix Awards rather than every other year if we just slide it over, if that makes sense. Not that that's the biggest thing, but it's the first thing that, we made a change last time, and now we've had this impact, and so it'll be pushed out by another year.
Yeah, this is Joshua Foley. I'm all for pushing it out another year. I was an advocate for making it less frequent, just because it's more unique. I think once you put a number and an annual sort of a thing, we might be. I'm always hesitant to be searching for somebody. I think the virus puts an asterisk on everything. Mm-hmm. I think it just is, and this creates, I think, an opportunity. What I would like to focus in on, and if we can maybe review and enhance those guidelines, is what are artists doing, because we have a lot of them that are innovative and meeting the challenge of continuing to produce great works of art during COVID period. There's, as I sit on the Lawrence Arts Center board, the whole team are just coming up with brilliant and interesting and compelling ideas of how to deliver what it is they need to deliver through virtual experiences, through online experiences. Namely, I think this was the thing that put the art auction into a whole different realm, a whole different set of circumstances. And I think there are a lot of artists who are doing the same thing and finding interesting ways. And this gives them a year to find their footing and it to be recognized in a meaningful way. So I'm a big advocate of just postponing it a year. Let us wrap our head around it and see what it might look like post-COVID.
Yeah, I think I appreciate your comment. I think it's reasonable too. I mean, I think one thing we saw in that first go around where we did it every other year was, I think the quality of the award itself was, I thought it was great, and that's obviously attributable to the artists that did that, but also to the bigger budget. So.
Yeah, this is Clint. That jumped out at me as, the thing that, when I think about, a budget for next year, and potentially losing money, how do we keep the money where it makes the most sense? And so I think delaying the Phoenix Awards and possibly moving that money. And I even wonder about, to me, the thing, community arts grants, artists need money right now. And while the ODSE gets them money, it also is to a very specific type of artist, or can be. I even wonder about moving some of that money into community arts grants, so that we can just, basically take the approach that artists need money, let's give them the money, and kind of just totally really shifting the money around to just get the money to the artist.
I have a question. As you're talking about the Phoenix Award and the $3,000 for next year, is the suggestion that we not use that $3,000, or we might let that go if we have to let something go? Because my understanding is that $3,000 would go to hire the artist who would create the award in 2021, and then in 2022, the $3,000 would go towards the event. Or is that wrong?
No, that's how I see it. I see it that next year we use the 3,000 for which should have been this year. We'll use it next year for the artist to create the award, and then the following year, do the event. I think what I suggested before, or what I was saying before, was one option would be for us to go back to doing all of it in 1 year in the $3,000 budget, do the award and the banquet, because we would have been on that cycle. But I think Joshua's point is, no, let's stay with every other year, but next year, 2021, would be the year that we use the $3,000 for the award itself to the artists who generate, or artists, as we've done multiple, or we've done a group before to create the award, and then in 22 we do the event. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joshua, but that's how I heard it.
Yeah, and I think that's good, and I think what that implies or communicates is that there's 1 year, at least 1 year, that we have $3,000 that has not been spent, right? If we delay it by a year. And I think that's where, if there is that $3,000, I think then the option is to either increase, I would maybe say, I don't know, just to roll it over in the artist producing the award, or I'd probably be inclined to follow Clint's kind of sentiment, where maybe that 1 year delay, that $3,000 for that budgeted year, maybe roll over into the community arts grants, so that it's not sitting there waiting for one person, but can maybe be distributed among a number of artists who are doing great stuff.
I'd like to jump on that.
Hang on one second. Okay? Let me clarify something, because I'm concerned that could take you down a road that you can't go down. Funds can't roll over from year to year. That's why that's one of the reasons why the Phoenix Awards were set up, to spend $3,000 on artists 1 year and then $3,000 on artists the next year. Basically, you're doubling your budget, but you're doing it over a 2-year period. Does that make sense? Sorry, Jordan. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
No, you're good. Just processing. So I'm hearing a lot of. Sorry, give me a second. Porty, it threw me off.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
So I'm hearing a lot about, rolling, or not rolling over the funds, but like trying not to spend that money, or trying to spend it on one specific artist. I'm wondering if we can, like, if it's possible to actually reimagine the Phoenix Award just for next year, because I think it is actually really important that we have something in 2021, just because, like, as far as uplifting the community goes, artist morale, but also artists are financially hurting now. So I think it's important that we figure out ways to get some of that money into whatever artist is designing the award. But also, I'm wondering if we can figure out a way to open the award to a small group rather than just one. Am I getting that right? Is it just one winner per year?
Well, so there is one award there's one award created for the recipients. Now there may be 9 recipients, so they create 9 awards. And the award that we select can be done by one artist or a group working together. So for example, in our last iteration of this, the award itself, the physical, thing that you hand to someone who won the award, was a collaboration between 2 artists who worked in different media, but created this, frankly, stunning piece. They were fantastic. And there were, I can't remember what the quantity was, but those were created let's call it year 1 of the every other year cycle, and they were given they were awarded $3,000 to do those, to create those pieces. And then in the following year, we did the actual ceremony itself. So we took the $3,000 and, part of it goes to advertising and, all of the things that it takes to do the ceremony. And there's a master of ceremonies, and the award thing happens, and the people receive the awards. And I don't remember, there's a variable number of recipients per year. I think there's several categories, and the community nominates people, and, and we frankly select them. As we also select in the first year, we select the artists for the actual physical award.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So I think to speak to the point, this is Joshua Foley, is there's no monetary award for receiving the Phoenix Award. You just get the physical creation of a piece of art itself, and the honor of being a Phoenix Award member, which is pretty prestigious in and of itself. I think it's terrific. What Clint mentioned that I'm interested in is if it's not going directly to an artist, and there is a $3,000 gap or something missing, I would prefer that to go to like a community arts grant, especially since a lot of those community arts grants that are given are maybe a part of a package of grants that artists have pursued. And if that's $1,000 for 3 other artists that didn't receive other parts of that community arts grant, then that's wonderful. Then that's 3 other artists that we can help to support, just in terms of that. So I'm not sure how that fiscal year goes or how that timeline is structured. But what I've heard, it seems, is that in postponing a year, there's a year of $3,000 that's not already predetermined as to its allocation.
Okay.
Actually, hang on. I want to be clear here. There is no year where it's unaccounted for. This year we didn't get it, right? We didn't get the $3,000 to choose an artist to create the award. Period. We didn't have it. So there is no money. There's no money.
The city decided not to.
Right.
Okay.
So there is no $3,000 anywhere for that. Next year, fingers crossed, there would be 3,000. There may be, we don't know, but if there were, then the question is, do we use that to choose an artist for the Phoenix Awards, and choose that award, give the $3,000 to the artist or artists to create that award.
So you're saying we're at minimum $3,000 further behind the holiday lights?
Yeah. It's Kate.
Thank you. I would like to go back to Jordan's suggestion of reimagining the Phoenix Awards. Since we're already off, nothing happened this year. Next year would be the year that we would have given the awards to people. when, we're going to go with when we get the $3,000 for next year for the Phoenix Award, I think it would be fabulous if Jordan and the rest of you guys who are going to still be there come up with a way to, it's called the Phoenix Awards, which is you're rising up from the flames, you're rising back up, and do an event that helps the artists who have been struggling this past, 9 months, and just come up with some event that just focuses on Phoenix and rising, and you could use it as a way to promote the Phoenix Awards in the future, as a way for people to think about artists that they would like to nominate for the award, and possibly other artists who might want to make the award the next time. Since we're already off a year, we can be off next year, do this specific COVID idea event, and then move back on to doing it the other way. I love Jordan's idea. I think it's fabulous. Go with it.
Hey, Jordan, this is
Yes.
I was actually, I also really love the idea of reimagining. And Joshua, I believe you mentioned like the $3,000 is another way that we can support. And we're talking about all this reallocation. What if instead of a Phoenix Award, it's a Phoenix Grant? Because in that same way, it is still advertising the Phoenix Awards. It is allocating that $3,000 somewhere. And it's, instead of focusing on it being, choosing an artist, all of these things, it's there specifically to be supporting artists that we value in the community, or just, as a way that it can be, yes.
Yeah, and if we turn it into an event kind of thing, then what we can do is, we can emphasize the rising up from the ashes and resurrection, that kind of thing. But also we could potentially use this as a fundraising gala kind of opportunity, or a networking opportunity to celebrate the artists, but also get those artists out there with people who can buy their work at the same time as we're announcing Phoenix grant allocations. Yeah.
Should this be something discussed? Isn't there a Phoenix Award committee? Like maybe that group could get together and think of something really cool to do with it and present it?
There is such a committee, or there was such a committee. It hasn't met because of, the circumstances. Yeah, so these are great ideas. I wonder, actually, just to raise this up. Really, and I think this is the question that Porter was putting to us when the slide was up. Is how do we imagine these things? So we may not have the 49,000 because of budget constraints. We may have a portion of it or whatever. And so how do we prioritize the grants versus the outdoor sculpture awards versus the Phoenix, awards? How would we envision all of those or each of them in an environment for 2021 where we might have, I don't think we know what the percentage. We know what the percentage for 2020 is. But I think maybe it's worth, I was just picking on the Phoenix Awards because that's the one that we had changed in the last iteration of it. But I think really that our job is to maybe, to use you all's phrase, reimagine how we might do each of those things and best use that budget to support artists and arts and culture in the community during these present times.
Jerry, I'm really concerned. When I came on to the Arts Commission, we didn't have much of a budget at all.
It was tiny.
And it was tiny. This is Kate Deneen. And I don't want us to spend too much time saying, okay, well, this is what we can cut here and this is what we can cut there. And we're happy to do it, because of this. we shouldn't be happy to do that. We are getting so little as it is. And as you and Joshua pointed out, you know, the Christmas lights, they're fabulous, but do they have to be there to Valentine's Day? Maybe not. I don't want the Cultural Arts Commission to go too far back because we aren't that far forward. You know, we got a little bit that we got and we were ecstatic with it, but we need to keep building on that because the arts are such a huge part of this community and we keep having to fight for it. And I understand, yes, there's a crunch. Yes, there's not a lot of money, but just remember that we don't want to go back that far.
Right.
So as we're talking about it, maybe when you get the budget and you see what we have, then we talk about cutting back. But I'm not liking this at all.
Yeah, I know it doesn't feel good, and I appreciate your passion, Kate, around this. And I hope it didn't come across as I was suggesting that we, you know, give up, you know, at the progress that we've made or whatever. I think my suggestion was more, you know, that in anticipation of those things, that we might be prepared, you know, at that time to consider how we prioritize that. I mean, we won't be writing a letter to the city commission offering up half of our budget because we're really nice and you know, and so forth. We want to fight for our arts and culture and our folks who in the community who we know are hurting. I mean, considering the presentations that have been brought before us. So no, we don't want to give up any of those funds voluntarily. But we also have a responsibility to you know, to distribute those through the programs that we have in the way that we best see fit. And so I think that's really the you know, the topic here. It's a good discussion. You know,
Mr. Chair, can I want to interject because the way this is being articulated, this is Porter Arneal, a little concerning to me. I'm not here saying that you guys need to make decisions about cutting your budget. Actually, that won't be your choice.
Right.
That would be, and keep in mind this previous, hang on, let me get back to it. Oh, you guys aren't on, hang on. Well, you saw the slide. Let me share the screen again, I just want to make sure you all are clear on the circumstances. So this is what is budgeted in the city's transient guest tax fund budget for next year. So in other words, all of these things are budgeted for next year. This also includes the transient guest tax grant program for $120,000. I'm having this same conversation with them in the sense that it is likely that because the transient guest tax fund is reliant on funds coming in throughout the year through lodging stays tax, that there's no money in the budget now. It's zero budgeted every year or zero funded every year until those monies come in. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. So I'm not saying that you guys should consider cutting your own budget. I'm saying you should prepare and prioritize to adjust programs if indeed the budget does get cut. Or I shouldn't say cut, let me say reduced. That's probably a better term. Does that make sense to everybody?
I think that's what has concerned me ever since this whole change went from us being in recreation to this TGT, is that the minute that happened, I knew we were in a danger zone because to be dependent on those dollars, like it just seems such a bizarre concept that we're dependent on money that's coming in. We can't even plan for it. So like I went to that TGT meeting talking about what the grants might look like for next year. And it was kind of like you might be awarded a grant for $5,000 and you might find out the month before that you only have $2,000. And as an event planner, you just can't plan that way. And I think the same thing for the Cultural Arts Commission. We see $49,000. We come up with a plan, and then, hey, TGT monies aren't coming in. we got to shift gears, and it feels like the cart and the horse are in the wrong place. It feels like we should have this money. I don't know if it's the previous year's TGT or what format that should be in, but it's really a predicament that's very precarious, and it's not in line with what I think our mission is, to promote arts and culture, not to bring heads. I don't think our mission is the TGT mission. And so that's problematic. And I feel like that would be something we should forward to the city commission, is to make that change, so we're not in this boat year after year. And hopefully things will be on an upturn post-pandemic, but right now it's a dark place. And I think for the arts to be holding the bag, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree, and we've had this conversation before, and I think we've asked the question: what would it take to get us, to get our line item, if you will, moved out of the transient guest tax and back to where it might be safer? And I can't say that I remember the answer other than it was not likely.
Well, let me clarify. First and foremost, this is the budget for this year, and that determination was made by the city commission last year. So for 2021, that's done. The city will be working on the budget process. It begins each year's cycle. So that 2022 budget process will start unfolding very quickly in 2021. That would be the point where you all would make that recommendation to the city commission. But ultimately, all of this is up to the city commission to make the determination on where the funds come from and the budgeting and all that. So I appreciate Marlo's point, but for 2021, that's not the conversation you can have.
Right, but as a long-term goal, this body could adopt that goal and try to advocate for those funds to be moved for the 20.
Correct, and that would be done for the 2022 budget, next year's budget process. That's absolutely right.
Which starts when?
Basically, it starts early in the year, so that process will begin, and I believe you guys will have an opportunity to share that information with the city. I don't believe you will. You will have an opportunity at some point to express your opinion on that.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Porter. So I understand the difference between budgets and balances and so forth. So the budget for 2020, whatever, 2021, or we could actually talk about this year, 2020, was for us was 49,000, and my expectation is that there you could put together a slide that looks exactly like this, that had the FY 2020 tourism fund budget, and obviously a lot of those things were funded, and some of them, like ours, were not. When does that process happen? How do they? What's the process by which they say, draw a line through this one? This one we're going to keep.
So up till now, that has really been because we've just been in the crisis over the time. But what I can tell you, so there's not a specific process, but that, to Marlo's point, that's what's being discussed now. At what point does the city commission review this based on projections and make a determination? Because I agree with Marlo, and this is my concern with the transient guest tax fund. I don't want any event to think that they have X amount of dollars and then a month out they don't get it. So, and I also want to be fair. So if Jerry's holding an event in March and he gets $3,000, and Marlo's holding an event in September and she gets $5,000, how do I make sure that both of you get an equal and fair reduction in your fund based on those projections? And in a timely manner, so that you can make adjustments to your event accordingly. Does that make sense? Because I'm completely sympathetic to anybody running an event. You need to know what your budget's going to be. So we're wrestling with this. We're trying to figure it out. But basically, I think what it comes back to is the finance office will bring information back to the city commission to start having this conversation and start making those decisions, so that it would likely be a percentage reduction pretty much across the board, I think. Now, that said, the commission could say, I'm just saying could, We just don't think we need X program this year. We may just cut that completely. I don't know. Nobody knows at this point. So I just want to be clear, and I don't want you guys to get hung up in trying to manage the money, so to speak, as much as you can. I think reimagining programs is a really great concept, because that's a place you can do pretty much whatever you want, within reason, obviously. But does that make sense?
It does, but let me go ahead and get hung up for just a second on this. So help us understand how in 2020 it happened. Was it just ad hoc because we all got blown away and with the pandemic and it was just, again, sort of ad hoc how the cuts were made?
So yeah, what I can tell you right now is the biggest number here is this one, right? Explore Lawrence for $996,000. What happened to Explore Lawrence is everybody recognized we are not going to have full TGT funds this year. So immediately Explore Lawrence agreed with the city to cut their budget in half. So they only received half of their budgeted amount. I did not implement the downtown banner program, so we didn't spend any of the money on the downtown banner. So you're right, it was basically an ad hoc decision. Honestly, at this point, the sister cities has not received their $8,000, and now we have to go back and figure out if they can get any amount, $8,000 or any amount related to that. So I think everybody pretty much on this list suffered in some way, shape, or form. So I don't want you guys to think that you suffered uniquely.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering if if there was a process. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to go back to Kate's point. I think I look to Kate for most of my wisdom and knowledge, and she has quite a bit of it, and I love her notion of let them, as Porter said, it's not our decision to make. The city commission can make that decision. They can do as they please for the most part, and if we don't like it, then that can be elected. We have been selected by this and or previous city commissions to serve as an advisory board, and as we've seen, much leadership has ignored their advisory committees and boards to do what it is they want to do based on not enough information on those facts. I know my son was recruited to a Parks and Rec basketball league, but it swore that everybody was going to wear masks. That doesn't seem to be advisable. Yet an outdoor sculptural exhibit can be done in a very, very safe and responsible way. And so I think there are cuts that ought to be made, in other areas than necessarily the arts, which can be done safely, and without, not with no impact for sure, but with less of an impact than other organizations. I hope the city commission can recognize that. But yeah, I do think we wait and see what it is they do, and if they decide to, the city commissions decide to do something that we feel is not in line with what we've been tasked to accomplish, then we can respond appropriately, and we'll see how it goes. But in the meantime, trust that this is our budget, this is what we've got, this is what we're going to work with, and until told otherwise, and that's it.
We also.
Lance,
sorry.
This is Clint. I just wanted to mention, when I was thinking about moving stuff around, I wasn't necessarily assuming that any of this money went away. I was just saying that maybe even if we have this money, we need to think about where it could best be used right now, with so many artists in need. So I think we should consider that even if we have the same amount of money. Is what we're doing makes sense?
Clint, I fully agree. This is Sarah. I fully agree, because this isn't, a normal year. This 2021 is not going to be like 2018 or 2019, where we're just discussing a budget that may or may not be exactly what we're seeing. This is a year where the needs of the artists are entirely different. The needs of the community are entirely different. and who we represent as the Cultural Arts Commission is entirely different. Our purpose is no longer probably just to be event planners. And I think that's really what Porter and has been trying to get us to talk about a little bit more, is how do we imagine ourselves, budget or no budget? And Clint, I really think that is a phenomenal discussion, is how do we prioritize? And it's not prioritizing monetarily. How do we prioritize what we want for the art community of Lawrence? I mean, there's just, I don't know, like, artist grants are, for me, is what makes sense. But I think that there's a lot of you who have much more knowledge and much more experience being on this board and being involved in the artist community that could help discuss what our role can be in 2021 in the community.
I'd love to just add in that I'm just completely and entirely thankful for our new membership and these just out of the box ideas and thoughts. I think they're great. Grants, the more we can provide and support our artists is terrific. The one thing I would at least lay in there, just from my experience working at high school, is one of the concerns with our ability or inability to use some of our events as fundraisers is the counter argument is, if you're able to raise funds, then you don't need our budget. And that's something I think with the budgeting for the Cultural Arts Commission, I guess I don't want to caution, because I think we should, investigate a lot of those opportunities, because I think that's a great idea. And providing more grants and such is a wonderful idea. We just want to be aware of what those maybe unintentional consequences might be, and how we might want to be prepared for those as they go forward. But again, new membership, love you guys. Thank you. I think it's awesome.
Great. Hey, Porter, a question for you. When will we know? It sounds like you were saying that for 2021, maybe, okay, so 2020 was an ad hoc sort of, cutting as we went. For 2021, is there more of a systematic thing where we may get a heads up? About what we're dealing with, so that we could prioritize when we got that information?
This is Porter Arneal. That's not defined yet, but yes, I know the finance department is very much aware of this, and they are looking at how they need to approach this with the city commission to make those determinations.
I'm sure all the groups that are tied to that are finding themselves in a difficult spot for planning purposes. So, yeah, okay.
Since it's the end of October, could we also get ahead of 2022? If something was to be advocated to the commission for 2022 budgeting, like taking us out of TGT and back into the recreation fund, is that something we could start spinning wheels about, or whether we could create a letter that could be sent to the city commission? I'm just thinking, Porter, I think you said beginning of this year in 2021. So thinking about it in November might be wise to get the ball rolling, so it's on their mind.
Oh my goodness. You're gonna blow away. Very good question. If you'll remember, each year there's a budget process, and each year you, as the Cultural Arts Commission, as other boards do, submit a memo to the city commission, and the city manager, actually, as the city manager develops the budget initially. And in that memo, you can articulate all of these things and certainly start having those conversations. And then from that point, remember that the budget process goes all the way through until August, when the city commission passes the budget. So through that time, you would also have opportunities to even attend city commission meetings to, make your case and express your opinion. So those opportunities arise. I don't think you have to jump on it right now. For this, it's more about just starting to think about, how are we going to do programming in 2021? I want you all to be aware of the limitations and possible limitations. Typically, we have a retreat in January. That would be another thing. Is that something that you all want to do? And that might be a great time to start thinking this through. And again, as you all know, one of the great challenges for all of us is we just don't know what the future looks like. We just don't know how long this is going to go. So I think one wisdom I would share that as I've gone through these processes is obviously planning events in January, February, and March in 2021 may not be the best time. So to think that, think about those things as well. If the pandemic does start to slow down a little bit or those types of things, it's likely to be later in the year. So to keep that awareness in mind too of adjusting budget or calendar schedule or being prepared to adjust the calendar also is a good thing.
Porter, I have a question and a comment. My question is, what happened to all the money that we would have received last year? So I know the Phoenix Awards money we didn't use. The Community Arts Grants money, because we didn't have a quorum in February, we weren't able to vote on those grants that came in. And then by March, we were in the pandemic. And I don't know about the ODSE. So, and sorry, this is Kate Deneen. I always forget to say that. But did we get any money at all for 2020?
So that's what I've been explaining. This is Porter Arneal. The money never existed.
Okay.
That makes sense. Again, the TGT fund is not a fund that has money in it. It's a fund that relies on the money coming into it throughout the course of the year from lodging taxes. And
Okay.
so right now the TGT fund is literally, there's no money in there.
All right.
And so so there's no money to say there's no money available. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. And then my comment is the community arts grant stuff is going to come up pretty quick. So as far as having a calendar, that's something that the commission needs to start thinking about. How are you going to do that? Are you going to try and offer grants?
And I did take notes on this. So typically the call, this is how it's been done. I'm not saying this is how it should be done in 2021, but how it's been done is the call for the outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition usually goes out in January with an early February deadline so that we can select those artists and they have time to fabricate their artworks to be able to install them at basically the end of May, early June. The community arts grants, the applications are usually in by early March, and as Kate pointed out, the meeting where you guys were going to actually review and award those was the meeting when the pandemic started, and coincidentally, because of the pandemic, we didn't have a quorum, so we never did that. But that's typically decided mid-March, so that those grants go out shortly thereafter. And then, we've talked about the Phoenix Awards, so.
So, I have one more question. Sorry, Porter, but the budget stuff I think is it's difficult sometimes. But I remember when it was moved, when our budget was moved to the transient guest tax, we didn't care for that, and there were a lot of conversations about it and so forth. And now something's happened where, definitely there's been an impact, right? The fund doesn't have money in it for, so our budget doesn't matter. There isn't money in there for it. So if I could make up a scenario and say we were in some other budget, say we were in Parks and Rec or whatever, is it safe to say that this year there still was a possibility that just because of the city's revenue situation, certainly the transient guest tax was probably hit the hardest, but other financials for the city were hit as well, right?
Correct.
So we wouldn't have necessarily been 100% protected. We might have still. This is just conjecture, but we may have still suffered some cuts.
Oh, had it been another, that's a good point. I think, yeah, that's conceivable. I don't know for sure. It depends on where the, that budget would come from. But yes, I think that's conceivable. Actually, the finance office puts together reports for the city commission quarterly, and I think that, I'm not sure when that's due. It may be this coming Tuesday, sharing some of that insight as to what exactly has happened across all of these funds.
But those decisions, okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate it. Sorry to keep picking at that, but.
No, there's a lot to wrap our heads around, and again, I don't expect you to come up with answers tonight necessarily, but I wanted to get this in front of you as we anticipate moving into next year, and obviously we're coming into the holiday season too, and so we all tend to get a little distracted.
Yeah. So some things that I've heard from folks tonight. We're not interested in cutting our budget. We are interested in having it in a place in the city's budget where it might be more protected than it is, or more appropriate, to use a different word, than the transient guest tax. And I've also heard that there's energy and passion around figuring out the most effective, if I could use that word, way to distribute it, whether it's through grants or, sort of reimagining some of the ways that we do, the way that we use our budget. Is that a decent summary for folks? All right. Well, it's great discussion, folks. That's all I have on the agenda. I guess I'll open it up for any other topics, miscellaneous topics that somebody might want to introduce before we adjourn.
This is Porter Arneal. One thought I have is that I think this was a good start, and I think there's a lot of good ideas. If you all want to send me your ideas individually, I will gather those so that I can create a list for you all that you can reference, say in your November meeting, to continue this conversation, if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And it would be good to gather these ideas so we don't lose track of them, and then you have more options to consider in the future. The only other thing I wanted to mention, I know Kate talked about the roundtable and Final Fridays. Let's see where my notes here. So today, bless her heart, Kim Onspach dedicated the Arts Roundtable meeting to Final Fridays. And as you heard, Kate has set up the committee. And we actually talked about also, could the community arts grants align with Final Fridays perhaps. So those are the kind of the ideas that were percolated out of that. So again, I think different conversations are going to bring different ideas to the table, even culture chat potentially. So this is good. This is a good time to be just gleaning information and gathering ideas and brainstorming. So just wanted to add that point.
Great, thanks, Porter.
I wanted to add how grateful I was to be included in the kind of evaluation / conversation on the hiring of a director of inclusion, or of equity and inclusion that the city did, and the recent announcement. I'm really excited that the city is embracing that as a component. There's a lot of great participation, a lot of great questions and conversation with all of the exceptionally qualified candidates. But I'm really excited to see that, be something the city is moving towards. I will say that I at least brought up in a few meetings that I was hopeful that the equity and inclusion position wouldn't go the way of the director of culture and arts and some of those things, because it is a step back. I mean, I think it is for the entire Lawrence community. And as with the Director of Arts and Culture, the Director of Equity and Inclusion are critical things to the enhancement and the well-being of the city at large. So I just wanted to note that. Thank you. This is Joshua Foley, by the way, just to put my name on that.
Thank you.
This is Marlo. Would it be appropriate to invite the Director of Equity and Inclusion to come to one of our meetings? I think that would be really cool.
Yes. Love it.
Absolutely. Obviously we have to let him get here and kind of get his sea legs for a while. But yeah, I very much look forward to meeting him. If you Google him, it's Dr. Faris Muhammad. And I'll send you guys the link. For those who may not have seen it, there's a press release that went out in the Lawrence Journal World, did a story about it. But obviously he's going to be involved in a lot of different things. And he's also, because he is the first person to serve in this capacity, he's, I think, going to be doing a lot of listening and learning. And certainly coming to the Cultural Arts Commission makes complete sense. So I look forward to meeting him and working with him and bringing some of his ideas and your ideas to him as well.
All right, anything else? Motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right, second. All in favor? We can wave.
All right, and for the sake of the visual world, I see everybody waving in agreement to adjourn the meeting. So the meeting is adjourned, I believe. Actually, that's not my job. Go ahead, Jerry.
The meeting is adjourned.
Well
Thanks,
done.
folks. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Take care.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.
OMG.